Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the second video in this series of how to improve your Mythic Plus rating. In this video we are going over the next set of tips that I use to improve my rating. And I know I'm not the highest rating, I don't have the highest rating in the world, I'm not the best player or anything, but using these tips I got my rating up to 2810 so far. And I'm still pushing keys and getting up about 75 to 100 points of rating every week, which will add up eventually. Now these tips are just some basic things I do before I play and before I start the Mythic Plus journey to get my rating up as high as possible. As you can see, so far I've done 19s, 18s, and there's a 17 mists here that I still shoot up a bit. But I'm getting close to the plus 20s and closer to the 3k rating. For this video I have two tips for you. The first one is about the dungeons and the second one is about the covenant bonus. So starting off with the first one, the dungeons. The most important thing in Mythic Plus. In the first video we talked about the affixes and how you can play around some of those. The second best thing to do is to know the dungeon. And then it's not like only, oh yeah, I know where it is, I know the route. But also when you look at the, for example, here we have Spires of Ascension, the first hall. In this dungeon you want to know what the bosses do, what you need to take care of with the bosses, what things you shouldn't do or should do at the bosses, but also the mobs in between, because most of the Mythic Plus, most of the fails on Mythic Plus, especially in Spires, is interrupts, and especially the Forsworn Goliaths. Now the add-on I use here is Mythic Dungeon Tools, or MDT. In here you can create your routes and see how much percentage it gives you and a total of percentage. You can do multiple pools and create your entire route that you want. But also in here what you can do is right click the mob and then see what it does. Now the Forsworn Goliaths have an ability called Rebellious Fist, and you do want to interrupt it always. As soon as possible, just interrupt it. Now on here it says it only does 7k damage to all enemies, but that is on a, I think, a normal dungeon. In Heroic, Mythic, and even Mythic Plus it will scale up by a lot, and this can actually just kill your group. So it's things like that that you want to know. Some of these have spells that you can interrupt. In MDT you can also see what it's affected by. So it's affected by taunts, polymorphs, disorients, stuns, slows, fears, all those kind of things. So you can see if it's worth it interrupting or if it's not even going to do anything. So you want to know what things to interrupt or stun. So for example, if we go to Theater of Pain and we get into, it's not this part, we get into this part, you get one of these two mobs every time, in this hall, in this small part, and right before the boss. Now one of those does a Whirlwind, a Whirling Blade, and an Interrupting Roar. So you know when the Interrupting Roar is casted, you either want to interrupt it, or you want to make sure you are not getting interrupted by it. When the Whirling Blade comes to you, you do want to move out. If you get the other guy, he has totally different things he can do. Those kind of things, those little things, if you know what to do in either situation, it will help you out a lot. And instead of going in blind and thinking, well, I'm not sure what it does, let's hope for the best, that can work. But then you probably have a bit of experience on your character, you've played a lot, you've seen other dungeons, so you kind of know what to expect. But with these, in these halls especially, these are like just mini bosses. They have abilities that can deal a ton of damage. What I normally do before I start Mythic Plus, and that's basically the first season that I did this, is just run some normals and see what it does. Then get into heroic. Run a few heroics. Even if you already have the gear to do mythics or mythic plus, just run a few heroics. See what it does. Then you can also get a feeling for the damage it does. Like the Forsworn Goliaths in Spires, the damage adds up. If you don't know and you just jump in a +10 and you miss an interrupt, you might get instantly killed. If you know the damage is ramping up, you know in Mythic Plus, the higher keys you do, the more damage it deals, the bigger the chance is that you get one-shotted by those kind of mechanics. Those are things you wanna look out for. What I do in the first season normally, and with Dragonflight coming in season 4, that might be a different thing. But in Shadowlands, the first season, the first few weeks, I only ran normals, heroics, and maybe a Mythic Zero just to get a feeling of it and get a bit of gear from Mythic Zeros. And then when I was confident enough, I knew kind of what the dungeons did and what mobs to interrupt, what to stun, what to do in there. I moved on to Mythic Plus and just slowly build up the keys that I did. So I'm not instantly running in a +10 because I know my gear wasn't enough and I know my skill wasn't enough to get a +10 done. So I just jumped into a +2, did a few +2s, then tried 3s and 4s, and then when you get more confident you can get a bigger step in, or if you get like if you played season 1 but then you haven't played season 2, you haven't played season 3, and then you get back in season 4. Well, this season 4 will be a little bit different Mythic Plus wise, but let's say the dungeons were the same. If you know what it does in the dungeon and you're familiar with the bosses and the routes and things like that, just go for it. You can jump up a few keys. It's not too hard to do actually. So this is the first thing. Know the interrupts, the stuns, the skips, and also I told it already a bit. Know your routes. Now routes can be a little hard. Routes can look like this in the MDT. You don't have to use this, of course. You can also just look at other streamers, what they do. You can look on YouTube, like what is a good route for this dungeon. Sometimes tanks have really good routes and just know where to go, how to do it. This is just one of the routes we recently did. A tank shared this route and he did it like this. So first up, we started with skip. So we start the skip here and end it about here, and then pull the entire group. Then pull the ads on the side, actually only one. Then the red slime, pull it up, kill the boss, and then move on in this order. But that's a nice thing to have in Mythic Dungeon Tools. You can also make your own routes. So let's see. Oh, here's also one that a tank shared with us. The stripes, the white stripe is basically just a skip thing he used. So you could get a woe relic, skip it, do a part, get a woe relic, skip 2 here, things like that. Other than that, you can also see what the bosses do. So check it out. It's really useful if you're not sure, like, why did I die to this ability? You can see what it does. You can see the exact damage, but also in the I use details for a damage meter. You can also see the damage you took and what damage you took and what casted it or what does the ability on you. You can use that as well to see what it did and how much damage it exactly did to you, as the armor values and stuff like that will matter a little bit in that. Also, a useful add-on for boss fights, or just in general, basically, is DBM, Deadly Boss Mods. There's another one as well, I think it's Bigwigs, something like that. It's basically just an add-on that tells you to move out. If you need to move out of stuff, it will show you mechanics-wise things you need to take care of, those kind of things. Really useful in Mythic Plus, in raiding, sometimes even in world bosses or world content, open world content. Really useful to take a look at that. Yeah, try it out, download it, see what you like about it. If you don't, just uninstall it and don't care about it. The next point, besides the dungeon, knowing the dungeons, is also knowing the covenant bonus in the dungeon. In Shadowlands, this is a big thing, and if you run lower keys, it might not be too big of a difference. But in the dungeons in Shadowlands, you obviously have the covenants, and in an ideal situation, in the 8 dungeons, and yes, I said 8, we do have both Tazavesh dungeons. In Tazavesh, you don't have any covenant interactions, but in the open world, in Revendreth, you have Sanguine Debts and you have Halls of Atonement, and everyone that is a Venthyr will have the option of a bonus. In Ardenweald, a Night Fae will have bonuses. In Mist of Ternasite and the other side, in Bastion, a Kyrian will have a bonus. In Necrotic Wake and Spires of Ascension, and Necrolords have bonuses in Plaguefall and Theater of Pain. Now, besides only knowing what dungeon gives a bonus to what covenant, it gives a bonus to the entire group, most of the times. So to really quickly go over it, in Plaguefall you have slimes. If you use your fleshcraft next to the slimes or on the slimes, you get a bonus for your team. In Theater of Pain you have banners. If you get the banner, you get movement speed and versatility for the entire group. In Spires of Ascension, you can pick up a spear as a Kyrian and drop it on some hard packs to stun it for a second, I think. A few seconds, and also increase the damage it takes. So on the harder packs, that would be really good to get those packs down. In Necrotic Wake, you have the big Kyrian-like constructs that you can fix up with your Summon Steward ability, and then get a bonus in get an orb on you basically that will deal damage around you, and it's pretty much damage. In the other side, you have urns that as a Night Fae you can open it and stun it, so you can do a bit bigger pulls and stun the entire pack. In Mist of Ternasite, you can skip a part at the beginning, and you have the option to get resurrection points throughout the dungeon, which is pretty nice, after the first boss and after the second boss, so if you die you don't have to run all the way back. And you can get a bonus to your main stat or stamina just before the first boss. Then in Revendreth we have Halls of Atonement. You have, let me see if I can pull it up here. We go to Halls of Atonement. You have it's outside. Yeah, these loyal Stoneborns. They deal pretty good damage, and as a Venthyr you can basically command one to stay by your side for a few seconds and fight for you, which is really good on some packs or boss fights. Can really help out. They do pretty good damage, so why not? And in Sanguine Debts you have cans you can open, and when you open it and you kill a mob on top of it, you get a bonus to your damage and healing done, which can increase up to, I think it's 10%, but it might be more, I'm not sure. It's a big bonus. If you can keep pulling mobs into those cans when it's opened, do it. It's really gonna help you out. It's really good to try and get those before bosses or before you do big pulls to increase your damage. Try it out, make use of it, and that's basically the tips for today. In the next video, I will go over other things you can improve for yourself, your class, how to optimize your gear and enchants, things like that, and yeah, some other tips to improve your rating even further. This was it for this video. Good luck in your mythic keys. Let me know if you can improve your keys with the tips that I gave so far. Stay tuned for the next one, and please like and subscribe. Also hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any video. Let me know in the comments down below how your mythic dungeons went, and I will see you in the next one.